Gather round, children of the world, for tonight we journey to the village of Okuta, a place where the baobab trees whisper secrets to the wind, and the red earth holds the footprints of 1,000 ancestors. You see, my friends, in Okuta there stands a drum, but not just any drum. This drum was carved from the heart of an ancient Iroko tree, a tree so old, the elders say it remembered the first rains that blessed this land. The drum stands tall as a grown man, its dark wood polished by countless ceremonies. If you look closely at those carvings, you'll see elephants dancing with antelopes, eagles soaring with the moon, and at the very top, the face of Olodumare, the supreme creator, watching over all. Who may touch the sacred drum? Only Chief Adebayo, wise and just, when the harvest moon is full, when the young must learn the old ways, when the ancestors call for celebration. But what happens, dear listeners, when the drum speaks without the chief's hands upon it? It was the night of the 7th moon, when even the crickets seemed to hold their breath. Chief Adebayo lay sleeping on his mat, dreaming perhaps of tomorrow's council meeting, or his wife's delicious pounded yam. Then suddenly, KPAN, KPAN, KPAN. The sacred drum thundered through the night. Not once, not twice, but 7 times, each beat shaking the very souls of Okuta. Old Mama Folake was the first to stick her grey head outside. Allah! Who is disturbing our sleep? Even the spirits know better than to wake a grandmother. Young Kemi rubbed her eyes and giggled. Maybe the drum is having a bad dream, Mama. Dreams, scoffed Papa Tund, rapping his repetiter. Drums don't dream, child. Someone is playing tricks on us. But Chief Adebayo, still fast asleep, snoring like a warthog in the rainy season. The villagers gathered in the moonlit square, pointing and whispering among themselves. Could it be the ancestors? Some wondered. Maybe we have angered the spirits, others worried. I told you we shouldn't have let young Bod eat the last palm fruit, accused a third voice. But in the crowd stood Abeni, 17 years old, with eyes bright as the morning star and a heart braver than a lioness protecting her cubs. While others whispered of curses and spirits, Abeni tilted her head and listened, really listened. The drumbeat came from the forest, she whispered to herself. And if something calls from the forest, perhaps someone should answer. Now, children, let me tell you about our Abeni. She was the kind of girl who asked why, when others said because. The kind who climbed the tallest palm tree just to see what lay beyond the next village. Her grandmother always said, Abeni, your curiosity will either make you wise, or get you eaten by a leopard. As the other villagers returned to their huts, muttering prayers and checking their door locks twice, Abeni made a choice that would change everything. If the ancestors are truly calling, she whispered to the night breeze, then someone must listen. Into the forest she went, following a path lit only by moonbeams dancing between the branches. The forest seemed alive, every shadow moving, every sound carrying a message. Have you ever walked through a forest at night, dear listeners? The trees seem taller, the sounds seem louder, and your own heartbeat sounds like thunder in your ears. KPAN. There it was again. The drum beat, deeper in the forest. But something magical began to happen. As Abeni walked deeper into the forest, the fireflies, those tiny lanterns of the night, began to gather around her, lighting her path like a constellation come to earth. Even the forest spirits approve of my journey, she smiled to herself. And then, she heard it. Not just drum beats, but a voice. An old voice, chanting in the ancient tongue. Hear me, spirits of Okuta. I call upon the power of the ancestors. Grant me what is rightfully mine. Abeni's eyes widened. That voice, she knew that voice. In the heart of the forest stood the sacred grove of memory, a place where the oldest trees formed a perfect circle, their roots intertwined like the fingers of praying hands. And there, in the center, sat a figure hunched over the sacred drum, beating it with desperate intensity. It was Olawu, the banished elder. Oh, Olawu. Once the most trusted advisor to Chief Adebayo's father. But greed, my children, greed had poisoned his heart like palm wine left too long in the sun. 3 harvests ago, the villagers discovered Olawu had been stealing from the community granary, taking food from the mouths of widows and orphans to trade for gold trinkets. I deserve more, he had shouted during his trial. I have served this village longer than any man. But service built on selfishness is like a house built on sand, the first strong wind blows it away. And now, this cunning old jackal had returned with a plan. If I can make the villagers believe the ancestors are calling for new leadership, if I can create enough fear and confusion, they will beg me to return as their leader. But Abeni heard every word. So this is your game, old man, she whispered. Using our people's faith against them, turning our sacred traditions into tools of deception. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind, the greatest evil is not the roar of the lion, but the whisper of the snake. But as Abeni watched, something even more troubling happened. Olawu began to speak to the drum as if it could hear him. Ancient spirits, grant me the power I deserve. Make the people see that only I can lead them to prosperity. And do you know what happened, dear listeners? Nothing. The forest remained quiet except for his own voice echoing back at him. But Olawu, blinded by his own ambition, convinced himself the silence meant approval. Yes, he cried. The ancestors agree. Tomorrow, I shall reveal myself as their chosen messenger. That's when Abeni made her second brave choice of the night. She stepped out from behind the tree. The only thing the ancestors are saying, Olawu, is that liars make very poor drummers. Oh, children. If you could have seen Olawu's face. His eyes went wide as a bush baby caught in lantern light, and his mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled from the river. You, he sputtered. How dare a mere child spy on sacred rituals? Sacred. Abeni laughed, but not with joy, with the kind of laughter that cuts through lies like a sharp knife through soft yam. There's nothing sacred about stealing our people's trust, old man. Now, Olawu was cunning, even if he was crooked. His mind worked quickly, like a spider spinning new webs when the old ones break. Child, you understand nothing of the spirit world. The ancestors spoke to me. They commanded me to return and save our village from the weak leadership of Chief Adebayo. Really? Abeni folded her arms. And what exactly did these ancestors tell you? They said. Olawu's voice grew louder, more desperate. They said the village will face 7 years of drought unless I return as the true chief. Oh, but here's where Olawu made his greatest mistake. You see, dear listeners, Abeni's grandmother was the village's keeper of oral traditions. Abeni knew every real prophecy, every true ancestral teaching, every authentic ritual in their culture. Funny, she said, walking closer to the drum. Because my grandmother taught me that our ancestors never threaten their own people. They guide, they protect, they warn, but they never hold drought over our heads like a weapon. Don't touch that. Olawu shouted. Only the chosen may, but Abeni's hand was already on the drum surface. And something miraculous happened. The drum sang. Not the harsh, demanding beats Olawu had been making, but a soft, melodious hum that seemed to rise from the earth itself. And in that moment, both Abeni and Olawu heard it, not words, but feelings, like warm arms embracing them. The true voice of the ancestors, and their message was clear. Truth needs no theater. Love needs no force. Leadership serves others, not itself. How? Olawu whispered. Because, Abeni said softly, the ancestors don't speak to those who try to use them. They speak through those who serve others. Abeni. Abeni, where are you? The drumbeats had awakened more than just curiosity, they had awakened love. Chief Adebayo, finally roused from his deep sleep, had discovered Abeni missing and rallied the entire village to search for her. And there they all came through the forest, Mama Folek with her walking stick, Popoton carrying a lantern, young Kemi holding her mother's hand, and Chief Adibeo leading them all, his ceremonial staff in his grip and worry creased across his brow. Abeni, Chief Adibeo called. Thank the ancestors you're safe. But then his eyes fell upon the second figure in the grove. Olawu. The villagers gasped. Some stepped backward. Others gripped their children tighter. The name Olawu still carried the bitter taste of betrayal. But Olawu was not finished with his performance. Seeing his audience had arrived, he straightened his bent back and raised his arms to the sky. My people, he declared. Witness how the ancestors have called me back. I have been chosen to lead you out of the darkness of poor leadership. The villagers looked confused, whispering to each other. Could it be true? Some wondered. The drum was beating. Others noted. But he was banished. Yet others remembered. Maybe the ancestors forgave him, a few hoped. The doubt was spreading like smoke from a bushfire. Some villagers began to nod, their faces showing confusion and fear. But Abeni stepped forward. People of Okuta, she said, her voice clear as the morning bell. Before you decide who speaks for the ancestors, let me ask you this: would our wise forefathers choose a messenger who sneaks around at night? Would they select someone who creates fear instead of comfort? The crowd murmured, people beginning to think. And most importantly, she continued, placing her hand once more on the drum, would the ancestors need to force their message upon us, or would their truth ring clear for all to hear? Once again, the drum sang its gentle, truthful song. And then, my dear listeners, the most beautiful thing happened. As the drum sang its true song, not the harsh demands of Olawu's ambition, but the gentle guidance of genuine ancestral wisdom, something awakened in every villager's heart. Old Mama Folek stepped forward, her aged eyes bright with recognition. Oh, she said, nodding slowly. I remember this feeling. This is how the drum sounded when my grandmother was young, when the real ceremonies honored our ancestors with pure hearts. Popperton removed his cap and bowed his head. The ancestors speak of unity, not division. Of service, not power. Young Kemi, with the honesty that only children possess, pointed at Olawu and said, but uncle, if the ancestors chose you, why do you look so angry? When my mama tells me good news, she smiles. From the mouths of babes. Oh, how children see through the veils that confuse adults. And Olawu. The weight of his deception finally broke him. His proud stance crumbled, his grand gestures fell limp at his sides, and for the first time in years, he told the truth. I thought. He whispered. I believed I deserved. I wanted to matter again. Chief Adibeo stepped forward, not with anger, but with the sadness of a father watching a child make terrible choices. Olawu, you always mattered. But mattering and controlling are not the same thing. A true leader lifts others up, he doesn't tear down their faith to build his own throne. And when both the young woman and the wise chief touched the sacred drum together, its song grew stronger, more joyful, a harmony of old wisdom and young courage, of established leadership and emerging strength. This, said Chief Adibeo, looking around at his people, is how leadership should sound. Not one voice commanding, but many voices joining together in harmony. As the first light of dawn painted the sky in shades of gold and rose, the people of Okuta walked home together, all except Olawu, who began the long journey away from the village, this time forever. But this is not a story of punishment, dear listeners. It is a story of transformation. Chief Adibeo stood before his people, the sacred drum beside him, and made a declaration that would change Okuta forever. My people, we have learned that truth cannot be owned by any one person. From this day forward, our sacred drum will not belong to the chief alone, but to all of us. When important decisions must be made, we will gather together, and whoever speaks truth, young or old, man or woman, may place their hand upon the drum." The villagers nodded and smiled, children clapped their hands in delight. "But," he continued with a smile, looking at Abeni, "we have also learned that courage often comes in young packages. Abeni, daughter of our village, will you serve as the first keeper of truth, to help us distinguish between the voice of wisdom and the whisper of deception?" And Abeni, this brave young woman who had faced the darkness to bring light to her people, bowed deeply and said, "I will serve, not as one above others, but as one among many, listening always for the true voice of our ancestors." And so, the village of Okuta learned that day what we all must learn, that communities built on lies cannot hear the voice of their ancestors, but communities built on truth will always find their way home. And what became of our story's children? Abeni grew to become the most trusted advisor in 3 villages, known for her ability to hear the truth in any situation. She never married, some say, because she was already wed to wisdom itself. Chief Adebayo ruled for many more years, but now every important decision was made with the voices of his people joining his own, a symphony of wisdom rather than a solo of power. And the sacred drum. It sits now in the center of the village, under a beautiful shelter where all can see it. And it is said that even today, if you visit Okuta and listen carefully, you can hear it humming softly, the sound of a community that chose truth over comfort, courage over fear. But tell me, dear listeners, what would you have done? If you had heard that drum beating in the darkness, would you have stayed safely in your bed, or would you have been brave enough to seek the truth like Abeni? And in your own life, when someone tries to use your beliefs, your traditions, your love for your community against you, do you have the wisdom to recognize the difference between authentic guidance and manipulative theater? Remember, children of the world, the ancestors speak through those who serve others, not through those who serve themselves. And so ends our tale of the drum that spoke at midnight. But before you go, let me ask you this. Have you ever had to choose between speaking an uncomfortable truth and staying safely silent? Think about your story. Your courage might inspire someone else to find their own voice. If this story moved your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear about the power of truth. And remember, next week, we journey to the kingdom of Ashanti, where we'll discover what happens when a young drummer boy must choose between playing the rhythm his king demands, or the rhythm his heart knows is right. Thank you for joining me in the village of Okuta tonight. Remember, every time you choose truth over convenience, every time you stand up for what's right even when it's difficult, you honor the wisdom of all the ancestors who came before us. Until next time, may your own drum beat with the rhythm of truth. This is Ancestral Echoes by Hoberty. Keep listening to the wisdom of the ages.